You ever have to make a big decision? You know, like it's a decision you've wanted to make for a while, but you're not sure if it's the right time. But you go through everything and you think everything over and you finally make a choice. And then you go through and make that decision and do everything that you need to. And the next morning when there's nothing you can do, you already made your decision, you went and did all the stuff you had to do, and there's nothing you can do to change it. You're kind of stuck with it. You wake up and you think, man, what the hell did I just do? Yeah, me too. Hello everyone, welcome back to Average Aviator. I'm Travis, and though some of you may know me for flying the Mooney and the videos that I've done on that, I'm both sad and happy to say that unfortunately that has come to an end. And I won't really probably be making any more videos with the Mooney because I've got a new airplane. In this video, I'm just going to explain a little bit on the reasoning as to why I traded the Mooney for the Skybolt, because even to me it wasn't exactly obvious. And then just introduce the airplane a little bit, give a little walk around, and then go into a little bit about where the channel is going to go, what kind of direction I'm going to take now that I have the new airplane. Now, first things first, I didn't keep the Skybolt Mooney trade, really a secret. I kind of posted about it on social media and stuff like that, but I didn't really make any videos with the Skybolt yet because I wanted to finish up all the stuff that I wanted to do with the Mooney, which, there's some awesome stuff that I did with it, going out to Idaho. And I just wanted to get that stuff finished up before I started making videos on the new airplane. And that kind of brings me to why I made the commitment to switch and to trade for the Skybolt. Really, I loved the Mooney. There was nothing wrong with it. I didn't get rid of it because I didn't like it. I wish I could have kept it. It was a great airplane. Those things fly so well. They handle just amazing. And it was great for going places. The problem though was I just got to the point where if I wasn't going somewhere, I felt like I was wasting gas. I didn't just want to go up and go for a local and practice landings. If I wasn't going somewhere for the weekend that was, over 100 miles away or so, it just felt like a waste. The other problem was that I kind of did everything that I wanted to do with it. I've learned how to fly it well enough that I could take it all the way out to Idaho, flying in the canyons of the backcountry, camping out of it. It was great. I learned to land it in an airfield, at a runway that was 1,400 feet long. I went out and demonstrated at this airport here at Butler Farm Show that I could land it in 400 feet and take back off in 600 feet. I broke a lot of the stereotypes with it. I just felt like since I had done everything that I wanted to do with it, there wasn't too much more for me to get out of it, and I could sit there and keep cruising around in it, but I wouldn't grow as a pilot. I wouldn't gain any more experience really for flying it, a lot more hours than if maybe I got something different. So that was definitely the main factor as to what made me make the decision. One of the other main factors is that I've always been interested in aerobatics. I've loved just banking and yanking the Mooney, to the legal limits, of course. I just loved the handling of it, and I loved the idea of getting upside down and turned around and just being able to do whatever the heck you want in an airplane. And aerobatics just absolutely fascinated me, but I did not ever think that I could possibly ever get into it. So when I decided to maybe try to do something with getting an aerobatic airplane, I just listed the Mooney on Barnstormers and said just trade for aerobatic. And I was getting a bunch of cash offers for the Mooney, and a lot of them just wanted the engine out of it, but I was getting some cash offers for it, and I refused them because, the money that I could get out of it wasn't enough to actually buy anything that would have been better than the Mooney. So I just kind of turned them all down, and I didn't get any aerobatic offers until one of the last days that the ad was up. I got a call from a guy in Ohio that had a Skybolt. So I went out there and we traded flights in each other's airplanes, and I immediately fell in love with the Skybolt. It was a dream to fly. After that flight, I was pretty much hooked. The decision wasn't exactly made right then and there, but for me, that little taste of aerobatics really got me going. It really made me want to do this. But it seemed like everything, even my own self and just everybody that I talked to, kind of told me that, hey, that's a dumb trade. The Skybolt's not nearly as practical, and you're gonna regret it. But then I talked to one guy, and he's actually the owner of this hangar. He's got the Cub project in the back there, and he's older. And he told me, you know what, you're young. You know, if you do what you want to, do whatever, you know, think is best. But if you want to get the Skybolt and start doing aerobatics, you know, now's the time to do it. If you don't ever get into it, now when you're young, you're never going to do it. And so that kind of really stuck with me. So once I finally made up my mind that I was going to make the trade, I decided to get my tailwheel endorsement, obviously, because I'm going to need that to fly this. So I went and got my tailwheel up at Bad Attitude in Youngstown, Elser, and they trained me really well. And they threw me in the back of the Super Decathlon, and that's where I got my endorsement from. And it set me up really well to transition to the Skybolt, because flying the Skybolt's actually not too bad, but landing it is one of the more challenging things because it is pretty blind. Once you get the nose up, you can't see past it, and you have to use just your peripherals to land the thing. So doing my tailwheel endorsement from the back of a Super Decathlon with the instructor up front really prepared me pretty well for this. I got my tailwheel endorsement, the annual was finished up on the Mooney, and then all that was left was the guy in Ohio flew the Skybolt over here, and then I did one flight with him in the Mooney to show him the ropes, and then he took off and took the Mooney with him. And it actually was pretty sad to see it go. It was a plane that I had a lot of memories in. It was a plane that I knew how to fly really well. And, you know, I knew that once he left with it, I was stuck with an airplane that essentially I didn't know how to fly. It left me the feeling like I've got essentially a paperweight in the hangar now. That was kind of where that the intro to this video came from, where I woke up the next day and I said, what in the heck did I just do? Because I got rid of a plane that I loved that worked really well, and now I've got a plane that I can't use at all. But it only took a little while. I found an instructor to do some duel with me. I flew from the front, he flew from the back, and it really only took us 2 days, you know, like 4 flights to get me to solo. And I soloed in this thing in about, I think, February, and from there I've been flying it solo ever since. But I had a really great instructor, and at the time of this recording, it's the middle of July, and I've got 50 hours in it or so I've been flying my butt off with it, and I love it. It is so much fun. So on that note, let's get a little bit more up close, and I'll show you some more details on it and get a little bit more familiarized with the Skybolt. Now, as an overview, the Skybolt was designed by a guy named Lamar Steen, I think in the late 60s, early 70s, don't quote me on that, something like that. But it seemed like all his buddies were flying the Pitts, and the Pitts was just a little bit too small. Steen was a big guy, and he apparently didn't fit very well in the Pitts, so he decided to take a Pitts and make it bigger, and hence the Skybolt was born. So that's essentially what this plane is. It's essentially a Pitts, but slightly bigger. But it's a experimental amateur built, so all of them will be slightly different. So the Skybolts can come with a number of different engines because they're experimental amateur built, but mine has an IO 360 Lycoming. It is rated at 200 horsepower. And some of them have IO 540s, and those are pretty nice examples, but those are also a lot more expensive and burn more fuel. So I'm actually pretty happy with the IO 360. It performs pretty well for me. This is one of the other nice things about getting an experimental. Before on the Mooney, I really couldn't do much to the airplane, especially not the engine, without having an A&P mechanic sign it off. But because it's experimental amateur built, I can sign off pretty much anything in the logbook besides what's considered a major change. So what I did is I've done a bunch of stuff to this already, one of them being I replaced the gaskets. These gaskets were leaking, and when I replaced the gaskets, I just figured I'd pull these off and paint them up with some engine paint, and so that's what I did, and I could sign it off legally in the logbook. I did a bunch of other stuff, like I replaced the aero separator for the inverted system. Since it's completely aerobatic airplane, it's got inverted fuel and oil. Well, the fuel inverted is just the injection system, but the inverted oil system is a little bit more complex, and it uses, I don't know if you can see that, this tube here, or this line here, come on, focus, there you go, and this ball valve, and this aero separator, and all that combines to make the inverted oil system. So again, since it's experimental, different versions of the Skybolt can have different things, but some have a constant speed prop, but mine has a fixed pitch. I don't know the length of it. I think 76 or 78, something like that. It's rather long, but the ground clearance on it is pretty good. And the fixed pitch has some advantages. It's lighter. It's a lot lighter. And it's also a lot easier to maintain, but it's not as good for aerobatics, and it's not as good for cruise. I mean, for aerobatics it works. You just gotta baby the throttle a little bit, and for cruise it's not great at all. My airplane's pretty slow, actually. When I was reading up on these things, people were saying, or well, at least the specs on Wikipedia said that it was, they'll do 150 miles an hour and in cruise, and that seems to be pretty optimistic. I've noticed that mine cruises about 100, 105 knots or so. It's pretty draggy. This is the rear cockpit, and it's kind of difficult to get some good shots of it because the lighting is pretty difficult. But just a basic panel, some basic instruments, basic radio and transponder, and I'll talk about ADS-B in a second. The throttle quadrant, like I said, this is experimental, so this is kind of interesting. The throttle quadrant is actually the same throttle as like a World War II trainer or a P-40, or so I've been told. I haven't exactly verified that, but that's definitely a World War II era throttle quadrant. You got a little hand fuel pump down there, and then obviously the floor is transparent, which helps with aerobatics, but also is pretty cool with when you're flying. And it also helps you see the center line when you're landing, which is kind of nice because you cannot see in front of you. You probably can't see very well, but yeah, that's the kind of the vision that you got right there. You cannot see over the nose in this thing. Over here we have a little hat rack. I keep the important documents back there, and some spare stuff, screwdriver and inspection panels and stuff like that. But that just closes up like that, and then you got a nice little headrest. This example is pretty nice because it's got the one sliding canopy in the back, which is supposed to be faster, and I think just looks a little bit better than the canopy that extends all the way up to the front pit. But that means that the front pit is open cockpit. I do have a windscreen that bolts onto the front here. So this is pretty cool. This actually is something that I've added. This is the backrest for the seat. But when I first got the airplane, this was just a canvas, I don't know, kind of like back pad, but it had a lot of play in it. You could just push right into it. So when I was doing my checkout in the Skybolt, the instructor flew from the rear and I flew from the front, and because there's no brakes in the front, the instructor wasn't comfortable with it. But that back pad was kind of like collapsing in, and my back was getting really arched. And it was just really uncomfortable. So I knew that once I figured out how to fly the thing, I would need to do something about that if I wanted to have somebody up front. So I came up with a solution that actually worked and solved two problems at once. The first problem was that board actually helps with giving you a lot of support for the front passenger, but it also gave me a place to mount ADS-B. Here's the panel just a bit. As you can see, it's rated for +9, -6, which is actually pretty good. This is your fuel level, essentially. Pretty much if you see the bubble starting going down, there's a little red mark down there that, let me see if I can show it. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little red mark right there, and that is the in-flight empty, so I don't let it get anywhere near that. But it's pretty unreliable, so I go based off of an estimated 12-gallon-hour burn rate, even though it's probably closer to 9 or 10 when I'm cruising, but that'll keep me safe. So obviously one of the other main reasons I got the Skybolt is because of its aerobatic capability. It really is the most capable aerobatic airplane I could get for my price range, and I'm really happy with its performance. I mean, it's not only just stable enough that I went from 7 hours of tailwheel to being able to fly it and then do aerobatics in it and slowly learn my way from nothing. It's forgiving enough that it can do that, but it also is capable enough that it can do a lot of the maneuvers all the way up to intermediate competition aerobatic maneuvers. So in terms of where's the channel going to go now that I have a new airplane, honestly, I think nothing much has changed. You know, yeah, okay, I have a new airplane, but the vision for the channel hasn't changed at all. I'm still an average guy trying to make it in aviation, and I'm still going to share my experiences with you. But I think there will be a little bit more aerobatics involved because aerobatics, like I said, this thing is an aerobatic machine and it's so much fun. And I think that's also one of the reasons that I enjoy the challenge of trying to relate aerobatics and make videos on it. And you know, when I was getting my first airplane, getting my license, I stumbled upon an aerobatic contest, but you know, everybody's airplane seems so ridiculously overpowered and just, you know, insanely expensive. I didn't think there was ever any way I could ever get into aerobatics. You know, it just seemed like something that was just so high above what I could possibly achieve. And now I'm getting into it, and you know, it definitely is possible. And so I think that's going to be one of the tasks moving forward now, is making videos on aerobatics and relating it to everyday people and getting people excited for it. Because like I said, I'm just an average guy, and if I can do this, then imagine what you can do. I mean, I'm just an average dude, so I'm sure you could do way better than me. Hopefully the videos will keep being entertaining. Thank you everybody sticking around, and hopefully you don't just immediately unsubscribe from my channel now that I don't have the Mooney anymore. But yeah, I'll still be taking trips with the Skybolt. I'll still be doing a lot of the stuff that I like to do. It's just gonna be with a different airplane. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for sticking around. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And that's all I got for you now. I'll see ya.